I hereby introduce to you Mr. Michael Veazey.
Today's episode is brought to you by the 10K Collective. The 10K Collective is a collection of men and women who are doing at least $25,000 a month on Amazon in the UK, US, Europe, doesn't matter, but that is the figure as a minimum. Now, why that figure? Because it means you get to meet with like-minded people who are serious about Amazon, who are doing well, and who are ambitious to do better rather than knocking around with newbies, which isn't going to help you if you want to scale up from 6 figures a month to 7 figures or whatever you're ambitious to do, 4 to 5 figures. We have people who are doing up to around the $250,000 a month mark. And as I say, the lowest is 25K. So it's still quite a big spread, but we have amazing things that get shared. You will get 30 minutes each, minimum of 20, 25, even in a really busy month. And there's only 8 to 12 people at any given meeting. So what do we cover in the meetings? Well, we cover topics from how to stay in stock, make more money by not missing out and not being out of stock, dominating a market and the mindset needed, handling whole container loads, how to predict stock needed, for example, how to get a product on primetime British TV for free, as one of our members did back at Halloween last year. So these are not prescribed by me, and it's not a set course. It is simply what comes up, what you need to handle right now to move your business forward. It's very simple, robust format. It's doing really well. We've got great loyalty from the members. I think out of 10 people that have joined it so far, about 8 are still with us after several months, which is a real testament to the fact that they're getting value, and there's a great feel of community, and we have a lot of fun. We take business seriously, but we also try not to take ourselves too seriously. We have a lot of fun. We're very open, and we have a lot of serious debates that actually result in people doing stuff and taking action, like opening up in America, like going to Germany, like, doubling their orders. I mean, serious action takes place as a result of these meetings, and it's also good fun. You'll need to be able to get to London, as well as doing 25,000 a month minimum, roughly in dollars, and it's application only. So if you want to check that out, go to amazingfba.com/mastermind. Make sure you click through to the 10K Collective page rather than applying for the Zero to Hero Mastermind, which is just for those who are just starting out. Thanks very much for listening. Now, on with the show. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the show. This is Amazing FBA with your host, Michael Veazey. And today I'm speaking to a very exciting man about the whole business of brand building. And today we're going to look at video marketing. That is Rick Cesari. So Rick, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Yeah, and certainly enjoying the content. I mean, I think the whole thing of brand building can be sort of talked about in rather airy-fairy terms by people who are just starting out and shouldn't really be talking about that yet, because they need to just focus on making a sale on Amazon. But on the other hand, you're coming from the position of somebody who's worked with some very, very big household name brands like the George Foreman Grill and GoPro. If we don't, and if that doesn't satisfy people, nothing will, because those are very serious brands. So let's talk about video marketing. We've been sort of teasing about talking about that. We talked about some very important bigger picture principles on and off Amazon, and the advantages and disadvantages and ways to handle Amazon risk and so forth in the last episode. And by the way, if you want to catch any of these things, as ever, folks, we just generally do it by guest name. So it's amazingfba.com/Rick C for Cesari. So RICKC. amazingfba.com/RICKC, and that's where you're going to get any interviews we're doing with Rick now, and if we can persuade him to come back on in the future, any future episodes as well. So Rick, video marketing, why does it even matter, or does it even matter?
Well, there's some really impressive statistics, and excuse me, but I'm just going to read a couple because these are really powerful. So first of all, why video? Every 30 days, more video content is uploaded than the major TV networks have produced in the last 30 years. So video's powerful. Viewers retain 95% of a message when they watch it on video, compared to 10% when reading it in a text. Social video generates 1,200% more shares than just text and images combined. And, if you speak to the reason for that, is video appeals to two senses, both sight and sound, whereas texting doesn't. Video marketing is even more powerful. Using a video in an email leads to a 200 to 300% increase in click-through rates. Including video on a landing page, which we're going to talk about, can increase conversion rates by as much as 80%. And these aren't my statistics. These are coming from HubSpot and Unbounce and really big companies that do, monitor our platforms that use a lot of video. And then 64% of consumers purchase after watching a branded social video. So those are just a few statistics about, you asked me the question, why should people be thinking about using video? Those are statistics that are out there. If you Google video marketing, you can pull up the same statistics. But probably for me, the biggest reason for doing it is I believe from a marketing perspective is you should do what someone else that's is having some success. You should copy what they're doing. I don't mean copy in a negative way, like, copy exactly. But the one thing these four companies have in common, and they're all big brands on Amazon, Pluggable, Sous Vide Supreme, Organifi, and Dazity, they all have used a lot of video to help educate their customers, and they've deployed this video on a website that's in addition to what they do on Amazon. And yet at the same time, all of these companies have grown to more than $10 million in sales. And I really believe it's because of the videos that they started using from the very beginning of their existence that has helped them get to the size that they are.
Okay,
that was a long answer to your question.
Well, that's a seriously detailed answer, and that's very good. I mean, it's not just an answer, but it's, I guess, it comes down to something you were implying in the last episode, which is kind of the flip side of benefits. Is you've got to believe somebody when they say there's benefits. So I guess, is video important? Gives you the benefit, if you like, of using video, is that gives you 10 million in sales. Okay, great, but why should I believe you then? A whole host of statistics and some specific examples. I guess that credibility is also a very, very important part of marketing, right?
Right. I left out the most important statistic, and this is directly applicable. Using video on Amazon can help increase your conversions by up to 20%. And I get this I work with a lot of agencies that help market products on Amazon specific, and they're comparing sales and conversions before having video with their products on Amazon, with after they have the video. And how competitive, you sell products on Amazon, how competitive it is. And if you can increase your sales by as much as 20% by implementing the correct type of video, that's a huge advantage that you have over your competitors.
That definitely makes sense. Well, that's music to anyone's ears who's been on Amazon, and for sure it's a very competitive space. So how do we go about putting a video on Amazon? I mean, first of all, the mundane question, which I appreciate you're not a sort of an Amazon only type person, so we may need to dig deeper to see what the latest state of play is. And I'm recording this in May 2018, so it may change by the time you listen to it anyway, but I think the principles that Rick's sharing will not. So the first question then, obviously we're convinced now of how incredibly powerful video is, and if it increases conversion by 20%, hey, I think any serious Amazon seller is just in. So the first question, which maybe you're not the Amazon over-focused person to answer this, but have you got any ideas how we go about getting ourselves eligible to put this video on an Amazon listing?
So two things. One, to answer your question directly, all of the companies that I've mentioned and we're talking about are doing it through an Amazon brand page. And again, I don't have the expertise on exactly the steps to set that up, but the information is out there. But the second part of that, the answer to your question, is that also every one of these companies also is deploying the videos on their website. So they're making video as part of their content marketing. It's an education for the consumer. They're deploying them on their website, on YouTube, but also they're taking the best ones on Amazon. So one thing I can share with you is what's the most effective type of video content? Like when I say video, it could be, it could be anything. And by and far, the most effective videos for both selling and conversions are testimonial videos and people that have used your products. And if you think about Amazon reviews and how important they are, you're basically taking something that's just and I'm not, we have to talk about how you get these customer testimonials, but they're by and far the most effective ones. And if you go and look at any of those products I talked about, and you look at the videos that they have posted with their product listing, most of them are using a very good customer testimonial to help sell their product. And there's a good reason for that we can talk about, and why testimonials are so powerful. And it's not just for Amazon, it's really for any type of marketing.
Yeah, let's definitely talk about that. Just a quick, or a more mundane thing. Just remind us which the brands you were talking about, because we mentioned that in the previous episode. So you work with some major Amazon brands.
Yeah, the companies I'm talking about are a company that sells computer electronics. It's called Pluggable, and they're the largest seller of docking stations on Amazon. The next company is a consumer cooking product that you would use in your home called Sous Vide Supreme. The next one is a nutritional supplement called Organifi. And the last one is a company called Dazity that focuses on selling for probably non-digital games like pool tables, ping pong tables, basketball hoops, air hockey, pretty big products. And one of the things that they do uniquely is they have the ability to fulfill that they're more expertise in that area than actually Amazon. Amazon isn't great at fulfilling really big products like that. So, and then the one thing that all of these companies have in common, they're all doing probably high six figures, and some of them are larger than that on Amazon, and they all have been using video very effectively.
Right. So the next thing to come back to is, as you just suggested, I mean, first of all, thank you for the very specific companies, because I think specifics are very, very helpful for people. You were saying that before, that to copy or to model, should we say, in the broader sense.
Model's a better word than copy.
Model's a better word than copy, I guess. But, to model what the successful strategies are. I mean, copy is what we're doing, but model implies you take the underlying principles and then you recreate them in your own business, rather than just copying the exact listing, because that's always what people think you mean when they're copying, because we're all lazy, and that's fine, but that's pretty just going to get you.
Yeah, and I'm a big believer in ethical marketing, and I don't mean to convey the message. Modeling is a much better word. It's like, look at what someone's doing, model what they do, but do it as it applies to your own product. So
absolutely right. So tell us more about testimonials, because obviously modeling those specifically successful companies, which I would advise anyone listening to go to Amazon and check them out. And if you want the lists and all the details, folks, we do very, very detailed show notes for this episode, for all our episodes, I should say, more detailed than any other podcast out there, I think. So get yourself over to amazingfba.com/RickC, RICKC, if you want all the details. But you were about to reveal the reason why testimonials are so important. So I think we've kept people in suspense. Drum roll, please. Why are testimonials so important?
Well, actually threefold. Testimonials are great for three areas. The first is overcoming objections. So someone will look at a product, and if they haven't made a decision to buy yet, they might look at the product and they're looking at your description. You're the product owner, and they know that you have an ulterior motive, which is to sell that product to them. And so one question that comes up in people's mind is, well, this won't work for me. And then they have a list of excuses. I'm too fat, too thin, too short, too tall, too poor, too rich, whatever. But when they see a series of testimonials, and Amazon reviews act like testimonials, I'm just saying, take that next step and you're basically taking a 5-star review and making it into a video. And basically, when people see someone that they can relate to that is using your product, it's a more powerful way to get them to buy than any advertising slogan that you can have. The second reason the testimonials work is establishing credibility. Again, let's use the parallel of Amazon reviews. The more people that are using it, the more good things people are saying about it. It's building the credibility of the product and the company. People believe in it. And the last is probably the most powerful, and it's actually a concept. You might have heard this before, Michael, something called social proof. And it's actually a psychological concept that they've been studies and studies. And it basically says when people are in a situation, then they don't know how to react, they look to what other people are doing. And by basically having a lot of good customer testimonials, people have a mentality that's almost like a herd instinct. If everyone else is doing this and everyone else is buying this product, it might be the right thing to do. I have another fun quote that I like from P.T. Barnum. There was just a movie about him called The Greatest Showman on Earth, and he has a quote that says, "Nothing draws a crowd quite like a crowd." And think of that in terms of Amazon reviews. Which products are more successful? The ones that have a lot of reviews, because people feel safe knowing that someone else has already kind of blazed the trail and tried that product before them.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I love the P.T. Barnum quotes because it makes me feel better now because I'm creating an online course for Amazon sellers, and I've quoted Barnum twice. So I wonder whether that makes you feel like some kind of shyster, but actually, he was the greatest showman. And a friend of mine was involved in a musical theatre show about Barnum that just ran for a couple of months in London. So being conscious of that, I didn't actually go and see it, but the whole showman thing. But I love that. And funnily enough, that's quite a profound insight, because I feel that not only does Amazon's artificial intelligence algorithm work that way, so if you're successful, you'll get more successful, and then you'll get more successful. But equally, if you go in there and you bomb, you'll get not shown by Amazon, and then because you don't get shown, you won't get reviews, and you won't get reviews, you won't get sales, and because you don't get sales, you get ranked. So it's either a negative or positive cycle. But also the first person to do that was Google, and they started off with academic papers, right? So they just realized that the more people read and shared academic papers, the more likely they were to be significant. Therefore they shared stuff that got shared, and again there's a sort of positive feedback loop in engineering.
One of the guys we mentioned in a previous episode, Bernie Thompson, and his company is Pluggable. He actually wrote a book, and I can't think of the exact title, but obviously you can find it on Amazon. But it has to do really the whole book about the flywheel and feedback cycle, which is exactly what you were talking about, how some little success leads to more success, on Amazon, but also in business in general. So it's definitely an amazing concept. And again, it's not a new one. We've mentioned Amazon and you mentioned Google, but I started using this about 25 years ago. I was doing live seminars, and there would be a speaker on stage, and at the end of the talk, people were supposed to go to the back of the room and register for the seminar or register to buy a product. And we actually had, when he was done talking, everyone would look around, and if no one was standing up and there was no activity at the table, nothing would happen. So we started having some people that worked for us just stand up and walk back to the table. They were actually the people that were going to take the orders. But when people saw this, they said, "Oh, it must be safe, or it must be the right thing to do." And it would open up the floodgates of people to buy. So again, it taps into kind of a human psychology that again has been studied with social proof.
Absolutely, and it's even older than that with my classical music kind of hat on, because that's this well, I suppose industry is probably too strong a word, but the profession that I sort of grew up with really, and that was my business until recently, or my profession, I should say, not really business as such. But there are very many famous instances of that going back to the Paris Opera in the early 19th century, where they would basically, the supporters of a composer would pack out the audience with a claque, and they would charge 10 francs for a big applause and 100 francs for shouting, encore, encore, and then 200 francs for throwing flowers. It was literally that much of a business. So nothing has changed. So it really is.
And actually, if your listeners don't take away anything else from listening to us over the last episode and this episode, is there's certain marketing principles that have always worked and always will work. And I can't obviously educate it. I would be totally open to sharing them, but really the best thing you have to do is read books. And a really good book, we had talked a lot about direct response marketing, a really good book to read for people to understand basic marketing. There's an author named Dan Kennedy, and he wrote a book called The No BS Guide to Direct Response Marketing. And that's probably the best starting place for anybody to really understand some of these principles.
Yeah, I've got 2 or 3 of Dan Kennedy's no BS guides, and I really like that style. I mean, I believe that even and I probably ought to be careful about this. So I don't think I'm a big enough fish for Dan Kennedy's lawyers to be looking at, but the header up of the videos on Amazing FBA, I can't even I don't even know what the language is for videos. That's how primitive my video marketing is. It's the no BS guide to marketing on Amazon for British sellers or something like that. So yeah, I'm big on no BS guides. And Dan Kennedy for sure is a bit of a guru of just marketing generally, right? The last 20, 30 years.
And yeah, direct to consumer marketing. And he's really focused on small businesses, and so that's why his advice is really, really helpful.
Absolutely. No, he's very, very down in the trenches, pragmatic. I would urge anyone to check out Dan Kennedy. I'll absolutely second that. So let's talk a bit more about how you would go about. So we've talked about the importance of videos and why they work, and testimonials being the most important. So tell me a bit more about the practicalities of how do you go about collecting the testimonials, and then we should talk about, the practicalities of the filming side, I guess, which for most of us, me included, would be pretty new.
So how do you gather testimonials? Obviously, these have to be people that have used your product. I know there's constraints with Amazon as far as being able to reach out to people. And that's where, again, having your own website and having information and having people come and visit your website so that you have a database of people that are following you. One of the single biggest faults I see in companies is that they don't reach out and establish a relationship with their customers. Again, knowing that Amazon tries to kind of prevent that, that's another reason why you need to be doing marketing off Amazon, because that communication is probably the most important thing for several reasons. When you talk to, and what we do when we book testimonials is that we'll reach out to people, and then we'll have 10 to 12 people come to one location, and then we'll spend the day talking to them about 30 to 45 minutes a piece, and just ask them a series of questions, what they like about the product, what they don't like about the product, why did they buy it, would they recommend it. And if you talk to 10 people about your product and ask a series of questions like that, you'll find out everything you need to know about what you need to do different with the product. You'll see trends about what people like. And then those are the things you focus on with your marketing. So really what these consumer testimonials are probably the best focus group that you'll ever do without actually paying for a focus group, because these are real people that have purchased your product. They're not, theory, people sitting around in a room like, oh, what do you think about this product? They've taken money out of their pocket, bought your product, and they did that for a reason. So we always, when we're doing this and asking the questions, we have a camera set up, and, video production can be everything from shooting it on your iPhone, all the way up to expensive TV commercial thing. And you just have to balance where you are as a business in how you do this. But the feedback you get from these consumers now, we usually shoot about a half hour to 45 minutes of video from each person. And now you start to have a content library. You have all of this video, and then it's just a matter of editing it into the sound bites that are going to help sell your product. So I covered a lot of ground there.
You did. I mean, but this is which is amazing, because in one go you've done so much. I mean, basically what you've just basically said is, first of all, the focus groups thing. Let me absolutely endorse that. I think Tim Ferriss, who's who's been living on the shoulders of giants like Dan Kennedy, and he was on people before him like P.T. Barnum.
I was in his first book, The 4-Hour Workweek.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, he referenced my agency, Cesari Response.
That might be why your name was so familiar to me when you sort of came into my orbit. But fantastic. So, I'm a big fan of Tim Ferriss, as a lot of people are.
Me too.
And he manages to distill things down to the essence. And one thing he said, got a fantastic way of distilling, editing down his language so it's very punchy and very truthful in a compact way. Slightly less of a sort of bullet agate kind of than Dan Kennedy, but still pretty direct. But anyway, so he said something like, don't ask people if they would buy, ask them to buy. Because I think this whole thing of a bunch of people who work in a corporate marketing job that don't have to spend their own money, asking a bunch of people who don't have to spend their own money whether it would be a good thing to buy, my magic coffee cup for £5 is an extremely indirect and dangerous way of checking reality. Whereas asking somebody if they will buy is the best possible market test, in my book, personally. So I really, really love that, first of all. What I love about this process, and I'd love to unpack a bit more, but if it's needed, is that you, in one stroke, you've done amazing product research with people who actually spent money, so really engaged. You have got a load of information for how to improve your product. You've got a load of information on which things that are working, so you can hammer those with your marketing. And you've got a load of testimonials. I mean, I just think it's geniusly efficient. So how do you go about those?
The last piece you left out is now you have all this video content and you almost have a library. And, the editing process comes in here. How do you edit what the people are saying to, cut down from 30 minutes of video to a nice 1 minute soundbite? And you just have to look through. One of the things we do is whenever we do a video, again, these are little things that have helped me over the years. We send them out to a service. You can find the services online, and we get transcripts made. So here you can just have online, exactly what the people are saying. You can highlight the best sound bites, and you can use the print part of that, but we know that the video is more effective. And then you can use the transcripts to help you pick out the best sound bites when you're editing. And now the beauty of this is, we just did this for another company. I'm going to throw another company into the mix here that's very successful on Amazon. They're a brain food supplement or a natural supplement company. And I'm on the board of advisors, but the company's called Natural Stacks. And they just went through this whole video process to create some nice consumer videos. But their marketing guy is now taken 60-second clips of these people talking about their products, and he's using them for Facebook ads. So the amount of variety that you can use the video content for is not just testimonials on Amazon. It's also for any other types of marketing that you're doing. And I gave you the statistics earlier showing how effective video is. So it's really a matter of just getting out there and doing it. Even if you're a small company with only a few sales, again, this is something that's going to set you apart from the competition. Michael, you and I were talking about your light before. And again, with a video showing all the different uses is going to, again, set that product apart from all the other ones out there.
Absolutely. So tell me a bit about the mechanics of this thing, because that's often the devil's in the detail. And obviously, I'm not expecting you to solve all those, but can you give us examples of, for the first question, does it have to be in person, do you think, or can it be done remotely, or what's your experience around that, first of all?
So here, there's a way, again, video can be expensive to produce, or you can figure out a way to do it that maximizes the what you get for what you're spending. And you can do them remotely. You and I are talking via Zoom or whatever, Skype, and you can do that definitely. It depends on how you want to use the video. We normally, and I talked a little bit about this, wherever you have a concentration of consumers and you're able to reach them by email, we send out an email to people asking if they'd like to come and talk about the product. And then we give, usually free product away to get them to do that. And it gets expensive. Like if you have to go to different parts of England and film people, your crew moves around. There's just not very efficient. Whereas if you rent a house and you have everybody come to one location, that way you're basically set up with your video equipment and you're able to get 10 or 12 videos in one day. And you can either have the reason I use a house is you have different locations inside a house that give different looks, or you can even just film them with a what they call a green screen or a white screen background. But not to get too technical, just think of basically having someone come over to your house, sit down and do a video. But the key really is getting a concentration of people in one place is the most bang for the buck that you're going to get.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So that, I suppose if you're lucky enough to live somewhere like London or New York or San Francisco, if that's where your consumers are, then you're going to have a concentration of people probably by the spread of the population, particularly in somewhere like the UK, where London has such a big percentage of people relative to the size of the population. Unfortunately, I was just thinking, for example, I've sold loads of products in America, and it would be great to get some of this sort of feedback. But obviously, I'm based in London. I'm not sure I fancy flying over to San Francisco or New York to collect a day's worth of some testimonials. So the online option might be more attractive. But I do take your point about sometimes offline you get more connection for starters, right? So that can be very powerful.
Absolutely. Yeah. And when you're sitting down, we're talking over Zoom, but when you're sitting down face to face with someone, you pick up a lot more nuances. And again, it's really, if you look at the testimonials, that one, you're trying to create something from marketing perspective, but the second one, which you talked about, is you're gathering information too, and about your product and company that the people like. They might, you might talk to 10 people and everyone says, I really like your product, but your follow-up service was horrible. Well, you need to work on your customer service. And so I get as much information that way as far as getting, a good on-camera review as well. But the location thing, we face that all the time. And, it's interesting. Again, another reason for having your own website and people that go there, and there's a way of creating a customer database, is so that you can start this relationship with people. And you'd be surprised. I just got done. It's not always in big cities that it happens. I was working with a toy manufacturer, and we went up to Wisconsin, a small town called Winona, Wisconsin, and just a little factoid, Winona Ryder was named after this little town in Wisconsin. I mean, you had to fly in and drive for 3 hours, but that's where their concentration of buyers were. It was real interesting. Another one I got done, we just did one in Orange County, and it just happens that for whatever reason, there's a concentration of people in a certain area, and that's where you go to do an interview. Another really good way to do it, again, this might not appeal to work for everybody that are your listeners, but trade shows are an awesome place. If you, for whatever reason, have a booth at a trade show, or where you're showing your product, everyone's coming up to your booth. If you have a camera there, you'll get more good footage there than just about anywhere else.
Right. Excellent. So that's really a powerful way of doing it. Actually, that makes a lot of sense. And actually just thinking fraction outside the box, which is surprisingly hard sometimes, I just thought, well, why would I have to be the person interviewing a bunch of Americans about products to sell to Americans? Why would I not have an American interviewer and just brief them and say, here's the kind of thing I'd want, and let's run through it, and I'll look at the videos and I can always give them feedback. So in other words, the idea of doing everything yourself is such a solopreneur trap, which I've just walked straight into. I'm like, but I can't afford to fly to New York to interview 10 people. Like, Mike, why would I fly to New York? I'm speaking to Americans all the time. Why can't I just ask someone? So it's obvious as soon as I said it. So yeah, that's the solution to the question that I asked you a minute ago, I think, is don't do it yourself if your consumers are in a different part of the globe, I guess. Yeah.
You just come up with a list of questions you want them to ask.
Yeah, and I'm sure actually some, lovely young lady with a beautiful American accent and is far more charming than I would be, is probably going to get a way better response from people than I would anyway. So we all delude ourselves, don't we, as business owners, that we are the best people to do everything. And of course, often we're not. I mean, that's for sure with me anyway.
You actually inadvertently brought up a really good point. When it comes for doing the testimonials, you're absolutely right. You can have someone else do that. One of the videos I want your people to look at, again, I'm going to use Pluggable as an example, but if you go on there, Bernie Thompson's the founder of the company. He's basically I think his background, he was a computer engineer or something. So he's probably, if you think about a computer engineer, they're probably not the best people to be a spokesperson. But what you were just saying, like if you were doing a video on your light, the fact that I guess my point, or the tip I want to share, is use an authentic spokesperson. And always the most authentic spokesperson is the company founder or the product owner. And you can do a better job of talking about your product and how you use it and why it works for you than getting anybody else to do that. And that's another little tip, that people sometimes are afraid to get in front of the camera, and yet that sometimes they're the best spokesperson because they're the most authentic.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, obviously, in my case, I'm not afraid to get in front of the camera, which is useful, I guess. But I was thinking more about the logistics of being in America. But it's a very good point. And I guess that is where it's our strength, right? As the company founder, we're the only person who can bring, if you like, the seriousness of intent or the authenticity of, like, I own this thing. If there's a problem,
and passion.
Yeah, and the passion, exactly, for the whole business. So it's a really important point. So So, Rick, I know you've worked with GoPro, who's a very exciting example of a really, really successful and famous brand. So can you give us a few lessons on brand building from GoPro as an example?
Sure. And it actually will tie into a little bit of just about everything we talked about. And one of the reasons that they were successful. And so I met the founder of the company, Nick Woodman, at a trade show. It was called the Outdoor Retailing Trade Show in Salt Lake City. And he was basically selling these little cameras. He couldn't afford a trade show booth. And he drove a Volkswagen bus onto the trade show floor, put some sand down and a beach chair, and was selling these cameras because he was a surfer. That was his background, a surfing guy, and that's why he developed the camera to take pictures of himself surfing. So I saw the product and I said, this would make a good product that we could help market with. 2 weeks later, he flew up to Seattle. And I have to give him credit. He had the vision and the foresight to be thinking about that he was going to build $1 billion company. And eventually, 8 years later, it turned into one. But anyway, let's talk about the video for a second. Obviously, GoPro's in a little bit of an unusual example because they had so much user-generated footage. And what Nick did was distribute his cameras to a lot of extreme athletes. And these extreme athletes would be what were termed now influencers. So these people would use the cameras, take video. We would have user-generated footage that we could work with, so we didn't have the cost of production. But the two things we did that really turned this video and made it powerful was, if you look at any GoPro video, they always start every video with a GoPro brand logo. And this is a little tip that's very important. As you make videos, you should start your video with a brand logo, and they always ended it with a brand logo so that people know exactly what you're talking about. And it's a good way as people share your videos to expand your branding or your brand message. But the second kind of ties into the direct response aspect. At the end of the videos, and especially the TV advertisements we eventually did for him, we had a contest that said, someone will win one of everything we make every single day. Go to GoPro.com. So you were asking people to take a specific action. They would go to GoPro.com and three things happened. One, they would go there and you would capture, we talked about how you build a customer database. They would capture, to enter the contest, you would capture their name and email address. And so you started to build your database and you could remarket to these people. The second thing that happened is people would go to the site, they would look at other cool videos, and they would share them with their friends, and that would create some viral marketing. And the third thing, we talked about generating revenue from your advertising. People would come to the site and they would actually buy the cameras. So those are the things that we were basically using the video for the people to make a specific response, and they were able to do that and build the business. And then people, they had the advantage of a couple things. They tapped into a trend again at the right time. People were really into taking pictures of themselves, the whole selfie generation. And here was a video camera. And probably the biggest thing that Nick did was not so much the camera technology, which was really good, but there's Sony, Panasonic, they were in the camera business. They had the ability to create nice cameras too, but he created a series of mounts that were able to have the camera turn around and take pictures of the users, and they could mount it on a mountain bike, on a surfboard, on your wrist, on your helmet. And that was probably the biggest thing, is tapping into the whole selfie trend. But that company, you think about it, the entire company was built on video and creating great video content, but also in the messaging of getting people to come to their website, register, building a customer database, and then being able to share the cool videos. And again, when I met Nick, they were doing less than $1 million in sales, and 8 years later, they went public and were doing close to $1 billion in sales.
Wow, that's quite a story. But yeah, it's just to unpick some of the messages that you got from this. I think it's so important. I mean, first of all, I think he turned a sort of what could be a disadvantage, not having much money, into a cool positioning statement. I mean, everyone else is booth. VW van with sand. You're like, what the hell? I've never seen that at the trade show. I mean, that's differentiation for start.
Yeah, exactly.
That's super smart. And then the branding, the direct response. So really, it sounded like he got 3 different things out of not paying for videos, which is super smart. So he got the users to generate it rather than himself. He got branding out of it. He got direct response, and even got revenue from that. And even if he didn't get direct revenue, he got people's emails, could stay in touch with them, whatever. So it seems like in a way he was generating a perfect storm of marketing with one thing that was accomplishing 3 or 4 really great things at the same time. Is that a good summary? Can we end?
No, that's absolutely a great summary. And then, just the one thing, it's like they started out working with these cool extreme videos. You've seen people jump off mountains in those like wingsuits and things, but as it went on, the company wanted to expand the business, and they knew everybody else wasn't extreme athletes, and they started making videos of families, in a toboggan going down a snow hill. Or they'd make a video of somebody's pet dog on the beach, and I, in my presentations, I actually show these video clips so you can get an idea. And really, that's a way of expanding the target market. And you think about, we talked about testimonials earlier and how people respond when they see someone that they can relate to. Not everyone could relate to an extreme athlete, but if you were a family and you saw other people using the video to take camera to take video of their kids, then you're going to say, hey, that's really cool. I want to do that. So really, it's just, again, a lot of feedback from talking to people and thinking about how your product can benefit the consumer.
Fantastic. So the final thing, I know you've got a little process, well, I say little, a clear process, but a simplified sort of overview. Tell us, how do we go about, in the biggest picture sense, building a brand? Because we talked about video marketing and the importance of that. We talked about the importance of direct-to-consumer marketing and building a direct relationship with consumers. Final thing is like the biggest of big pictures. What are the sort of biggest things that we need to do?
So I would say that probably the single biggest thing is, I have a saying: you don't build your brand to sell, you sell to build your brand. So your focus should be on anything you can do to sell your product, get it into as many consumers' hands as possible. And then as people start buying your product, they're going to, again, I've been fortunate to work with real good products. People are going to tell other people about it and why they like it. So the focus, don't focus on, what's the color of my brand? What should I do? Should I spend money on a branding? And really, your money should be spent on how you can generate more sales for your business. And then you leverage, as you're getting sales coming in, you leverage that into expanding the business. And as you go, your brand will develop. And that's one of the advantages that people have that are selling on Amazon, is they have an income stream. And all I'm saying is, you can leverage that by creating a website, deploying more video content, educating the consumer, all the things we've talked about. But it all starts going back to how do you make sales, and to focus on the sales part.
I think that sounds like a wonderful note on which to end it. I think any of us are going to be relieved to hear that from a branding expert, not somebody who's just painting themselves an expert, but just to reiterate, anyone who's listening and hasn't heard the rest of this episode or the previous episode with Rick. Rick's been responsible for incredible amounts of sales on the back of video marketing, literally over $1 billion of sales, including some household names like GoPro that we talked about, also OxyClean, the George Foreman Grill, you name it. So this is really serious stuff, and delighted to hear that we can get paid at the same time as building a brand rather than having to pay through the nose first. So that's really fantastic message. Have you got any last minute tips for people who are wanting to expand their brand and not just be another private labeler on Amazon, but how they, any last minute thoughts or advice for people?
Yeah, and that's again something we mentioned earlier. It's really, you just have to think, how can you differentiate yourself from what other people are doing, whether that's through better customer service, positioning of the product, what's a unique selling proposition you can come up with. But the whole thing really boils down to, what can you do different than what the other guy's doing out there, and to take the time and just sit back and look at what you're doing and figure that out. And that's going to be your competitive difference. I have one more little example. I mean, I have a zillion examples, but there's a coffee a few years ago. You talked about Tim Ferriss. I think I first heard about this on one of his blogs called Death Wish Coffee.
Yeah.
And if you think about all of the different coffee makers and coffee is coffee is coffee. And so how did Death Wish get so popular? The guy had a failing business, a coffee shop in Saratoga Springs. And basically he said, I'm going to make the world's strongest coffee. And he named it Death Wish. And again, it's just people come up with the most unique things. But just think in terms of how can you be different than what your competitors are doing? And that can apply to the product you're selling or the service you're providing, and maybe even a combination of both.
Excellent. Well, that sounds like brilliant advice. And yeah, Death Wish Coffee is, of course, famously a mega smash on Amazon. So that is a very, very apposite example for us all as Amazon sellers. So Rick, thank you so much for coming on the show. Just a reminder to people that they can find you at rickcesari.com. That's RICK and then CESARI.com. And Rick, any other places that people can get hold of you or find out more about your thoughts?
Yeah, my website has all the contact information on it. There's some really good information that your listeners can download about video and how you make your videos perform better, and 5 keys to building a great brand. So just visit my website, and my books are there. And I have a new book coming out, which we didn't talk about, in August, called Building $1 Billion Brands. Maybe we can come back when that's out, and I can talk to you again at that point.
Be delighted to have you back on, Rick. It would be fantastic to get an insight into billion-dollar brands. But for the meantime, many, many thanks for coming on the show. Very grateful.
All right. Thank you, Mike. I really appreciate it.